There's one part of creativity that I think we ignore very often. And that is that our beliefs are actually creating our reality. When I was 9 years old, it was my mother's birthday, and I wanted to get her a present. But I didn't have any money, and nowhere to get it from either. So I didn't accept that reality that my mother's birthday would pass, and I wouldn't get her a present. So I became curious about finding a solution to this dilemma. And my solution at 9 years old was to go to a very small store, not even a store, a stall, let's say, and to explain to them that it was my mother's birthday and that I really needed to give her a present. Amazingly enough, they responded. They gave me what I asked for, happily. This surprised me, and I realized that started to realize, I don't know if I fully realized it at 9 years old, but I started to realize that I was capable of creating my own reality. When I was in high school, actually I wasn't in high school, it's a very complicated story, but I was doing this test that the Brazilian government does once every year to raise the level of high school graduates in the country. And this test is multiple choice, and you only have to get 50% right, because they really want to raise the level of high school graduates in the country. This is important for the government. So, since I had not yet graduated from high school, I decided to take my chances. And math and physics always eluded me. As much as I tried, I couldn't understand it, so I figured multiple choice was a good way to go. I believed 100% that I would pass that test, especially because 2 days later I was supposed to leave for Turkey. And my mother told me, if you don't graduate, you can't go to Turkey. I was desperate. Yeah. And guess what score I got? Do you have any idea?
51?
No, 50. Exactly 50. Maybe if I believed higher, I would have gotten higher, but it didn't matter at this point because my goal was just to get this over and done with and move on to Turkey. I also didn't have any money, of course, to go to Turkey. I went about raising it in my own way, and I was short around $500. And this was the day that I was meant to leave. I had borrowed those $500, so I already had my ticket, but I still didn't have the missing $500. But I believed that somehow I would get those $500, and there wasn't even a question in my mind whether or not I'd be able to go or whether or not I'd be able to pay off the $500 that I had borrowed. That evening, I discovered that my colleagues, some of my friends had gotten together and had collected money for me to go to Turkey. Guess how much it was? It was $500. Exactly. After I came to Turkey, I had many other such experiences. For example, when there was the earthquake in Van, I was working in a non-profit organization, and I was desperate to do something about the situation, even though I didn't have any possibilities or anything that I could logically do for earthquake victims in Van. But I believed that I would find a way, and I ended up flying to Van on a sponsored flight. The cargo was also sponsored, with 1 ton of blankets, clothes, tons of goods to distribute in Van. Van was another adventure. Apparently we were not allowed to distribute goods, but somehow we found a way. Story for maybe another Toastmasters speech. But we went there, we distributed 1 ton of goods, and we came back feeling very victorious and happy. We didn't do much, but at least we did something. Today we're celebrating Independence Day. And much more than me, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk is a wonderful example of creating a reality that doesn't exist, of believing in a reality so much and fighting for it and not giving up until that reality is created. And that's the reality that we're all enjoying and the freedom that we're all enjoying in this country today. My mother is also a great example of creating her own reality. In fact, her belief that she could create her own reality is actually what created me. A very long story, but she wished me into existence. So the reason why I'm here is because my mother really, really, really wanted me to be here. So, it also works the other way. I don't know if anybody's seen Forbidden Planet. It's a very old movie. Anybody seen it? Nobody. Oh. Basically, with anger and with jealousy in Forbidden Planet, it's a sci-fi movie. They're creating a monster. So that's possible too. So I always believed I could create my own reality, but I didn't really understand that this applied to myself, my own beliefs about myself. This has been much more recent that I started to apply it to myself. And it's changed a lot of things in my life. So what is necessary in order to change your beliefs? I would say curiosity. Is there another way? Desperation. This can't stay the same. There's no way that things can continue as they are. And action. Acting upon the new belief. Because sometimes that's what it takes before we get the proof that actually it can change and that we're not limited by our own beliefs.